From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in the Guatemalan town of San Antonio de Cortés, where people said their final goodbye to Jakelin Caal, the 7-year-old migrant girl who died in U.S. custody earlier this month. Jakelin was laid to rest on Christmas Day after her body was returned from the United States. Previously, relatives and neighbors held a wake for the girl. Jakelin's death raised many questions about how migrants are treated at the hands of U.S. immigration authorities. Let's hear from our correspondent in Guatemala, Santiago Botón, who was at the funeral and has more.
Saludos, colegas y amigos televidentes.
Yet another burial is carried out as a result of migration. This time, it's for Jakelin Rosemary Caal McQueen, the 7-year-old indigenous Mayan girl who died under the custody of the Border Patrol Agency in the United States on December 8th. She was buried on the afternoon of the 25th because it symbolizes the sunset of life as it is interpreted in Mayan culture. Her wake lasted 24 hours and was held in the home she left over a month ago. According to Santiago Putul, one of the people I spoke to during the funeral, the child's death came only after her father tried to run away from the misery and neglect this community suffers at the hands of the Guatemalan government. One of the Catholic ministers who attended the funeral, Juana Tot, also told us that extreme poverty sentenced the child to one of two painful destinies: death or becoming another teenage mom, a story that's very common for children in neglected areas such as this.
From Guatemala, that was Santiago Botón. And another migrant child has died under the custody of the U.S. government after being separated from his parents. 8-year-old Felipe Alonso Gomez died on Tuesday after showing signs of a potential illness and being taken to a hospital in New Mexico. He was diagnosed with a cold and a fever and sent back into custody, but was soon returned to the hospital with nausea and vomiting. He died just hours later. U.S. immigration authorities said the cause of the boy's death has not yet been determined.
These could have been handled differently.
U.S. immigration officers have left over 400 undocumented migrants outside a bus terminal in the city of El Paso without notifying shelters. Immigrations and customs enforcement officers began dropping off migrants held in detention on Sunday night at the bus station without notifying local shelters, which usually take in large groups of asylum seekers. The total number of people left outside could exceed 800 by Wednesday. Local organizations have managed to house the people released so far. U.S. President Donald Trump has said the partial government shutdown would continue until his demands are met for funds to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. He has also once again mocked migrants, saying once the wall is finished, it will take an Olympian to jump over it.
The only thing that stops it's a wall. And when the Democrats talk about a wall, doesn't mean anything. Well, in Israel, they had a big problem. They put up a wall. 99.99% of the people were stopped from coming in. And we'll have the exact same thing. Now, we have a long, long border, but we'll have the exact same thing. Now, there may be the case of an Olympic champion who can get over the wall, but for the most part, it's you're not able to do it. Very high. It's going to be 30 feet. Much of it is 30 feet high. Some of it's lower. But in some areas, we have it as high as 30 feet. That's like a 3-story building.
Temporary relief centers have been set up in Indonesia's Java Island for the victims of Saturday's devastating tsunami. This is part of an effort to prevent the spread of diseases. Besides ongoing search and rescue efforts, disease control has become the most important issue in Java Island. On top of medical care, mental therapy is also being provided for victims grieving their many losses. The death toll has so far risen to 430. According to doctors, the spread of diseases is common following a tsunami.
I am certain the tsunami will bring some diseases as usual. We need to help prevent post-tsunami diseases. Residents evacuated from a tsunami-hit area can develop illnesses including diarrhea, fever, cough, cold, and skin diseases.
Meanwhile, false alarms about a new tsunami have been blamed for hampering rescue efforts. Soldiers conducting search and rescue operations following Saturday's tsunami have been forced to suspend the search until the weather conditions improve. On Tuesday, hundreds of scared residents fled the coastal village of Sumberyava after word went around that another tsunami was headed for their village.
This is for the safety of the personnel, because the Geophysics Agency has warned that the waves could get high. So we've been told to get to land, and we're postponing the search and rescue operations for the time being.
And as relief efforts continue, shelters are starting to struggle with the rising numbers of victims and evacuees. Over 1,000 tsunami survivors are staying in a futsal stadium being used as temporary shelter. Authorities have begun asking for help to assist people in shelters. A 4.8 magnitude earthquake has hit the city of Sicily in Italy, near Mount Etna. At least 4 people have been injured and many buildings were severely damaged. Over 100 tremors have been reported since Monday when Mount Etna erupted, sending huge ash clouds into the sky. Mount Etna is Europe's most active volcano. Its last major eruption was in 1992.
Everything was shaking. In fact, as you can see outside, the bell tower has collapsed and my house has been torn apart as if it were made of paper. The earthquake lasted a lot, about 10 or 15 seconds. It might have lasted a few seconds longer. I do not know exactly how long it lasted. It was a bad experience. We are alive by a miracle.
More stories coming up. We'll be back.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. This year, Cuba marked the end of an era when it elected its new president. Miguel Díaz-Canel committed to lead the fight against imperialism as Cuba faces renewed tensions with the United States.
Street vendors make their living, and the streets of Havana are busy as always. This is Cuba. More than 50 years after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution and the economic blockade imposed soon after by the United States. But business must go on. After the death of Fidel Castro, the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Cubans have an even bigger challenge ahead. Fidel's brother Raúl announced it would be his last term in office as president of Cuba during a meeting of the National Assembly, and that following a democratic process, Cubans would elect their new president.
When the National Assembly of Popular Power convenes on April 19, 2010, I will have finished my second and last mandate at the head of the Cuban state and government. And Cuba will have a new president.
People across Cuba voted in these elections. After taking part in several assemblies, they were able to propose and then choose their candidates. Children guarding the ballot boxes held up their hands in a signature gesture to show that a vote had been held. Expectations were high for the new leaders about to be elected.
I want someone, anyone, to lead this country well. And the most important thing is good leadership, people who are going to protect Cuba.
The name of Miguel Díaz-Canel emerged as the favorite to win the election. At 58, he had served as Minister of Education and was part of the State Council of Cuba. He'd been a vice president and had experience working with youth groups in the island.
We are defending our process, the revolution that continues to be threatened and attacked, in the middle of a complex situation in the region, and as we change our economic system.
Díaz-Canel was elected on April 19 and was the first person to be considered for the position who was born after the Cuban Revolution. He started working on implementing new economic reforms demanded by the Cuban people as they continue to face the hardships of decades of economic blockade.
He's doing what our commander Fidel Castro taught us. He's meeting with the people and getting to know what they think and how they live. I was able to shake his hand and I'm happy and grateful.
He's a man who shows that he is connecting with the people, that he is loved, that he is reaching out and getting to know the problems of the people, the things that worry them the most. And that's what we should see in him.
And with a new leadership came other changes. In another democratic process, Cubans gathered in neighborhoods, unions, student groups, and others to propose changes to their constitution. Everyone could take part, inside and outside the island, and millions put forward their own proposals. Díaz-Canel also led the debate inside the assembly, where the ideas of all citizens were taken into consideration and applied to the new constitution.
This exercise of direct participation by the people has the highest political relevance and will be another proof that the revolution is based on the most genuine democracy. And it's a major responsibility for all our people to participate actively and with awareness in the discussion of the Constitution of the Republic. All Cubans can express their opinions and contribute to achieving a constitutional text that reflects the present and the future of our country.
All across the 15 provinces of Cuba, issues of the economy, politics, and society were up for discussion, and a few topics stood out. The main one was to change how the Constitution defines marriage, no longer as a partnership between a man and a woman, and LGBTI groups were thrilled.
We are working with the state, with the Communist Party and society to educate people to change their minds and to make progress on these issues and their rights.
But in the international arena, Díaz-Canel still has to deal with the U.S. blockade. He led the vote at the United Nations, which year after year denounces it and calls on the U.S. to end it once and for all. And he denounced U.S. violations of human rights. But only 2 countries voted against it, the United States and Israel.
Cuba is proud of its human rights record, which denies any manipulation against it. On the contrary, the United States lacks the moral to give lessons, as much less in this manner.
In the end, the Cuban people will continue on their own path. The authorities say they expect growth of up to 2% in the Cuban economy. With tourism one of the main sources of income, they will continue singing and looking ahead to a better future and to the days when there's no more blockade and no more injustice.
In other news, the government of Mexico has created an investigation team to determine the cause for the helicopter crash that killed the governor of Puebla and her husband. It has also requested the support of the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board. Mexican authorities have ruled out the presence of explosives in the crashed helicopter. Governor Marta Erika Alonso and former Governor and Senator Rafael Moreno died on Monday along with 2 pilots and the governor's assistant.
After a thorough and careful analysis of the wreckage of the aircraft, they did not find any explosives or non-combustible substances that exploded inside the aircraft.
And a vigil for the deceased couple has been held in Puebla. Relatives and friends gathered to say their last goodbye, as residents of the area hope to know the cause of the crash.
We want the truth. We want this to be clarified so we can be at ease, for everybody's sake, for the sake of Mexico, for the sake of the people in Puebla.
Staying in Mexico during the holiday season, Mexico City is filled with colors and celebrations. Streets, public plazas, and open markets showcase the country's popular culture.
It's the end of the year, and public markets in the Mexican capital are some of the most visited places by families that are searching for all kinds of figures to decorate their homes and place the traditional nativity scene.
It's not the same like other years. These traditions are being lost, therefore we don't sell a lot of stuff, but people continue to come.
People try to keep traditions alive. In Xochimilco, at the south of Mexico City, cultural centers in neighborhoods create all the pieces of this monumental manger.
Next year we're going to make it even bigger. It's been a long time since we've done this. People are happy and each piece is unique and original.
The pieces are created using a paperboard technique by artisans of the area, who also create Christmas decorations. Many homes are full of color and confetti.
We have a lot of competition with people who make confetti in bulk. They use other techniques, but the process we use helps us add personal designs for our clients.
Paper is also used to make piñatas. The pigs symbolize the 7 deadly sins. They are filled with fruit and they are broken in the posadas, the name of festivities.
It's beautiful because today in each home you can hear how piñatas are broken. This tradition unites us as a family.
People who try to keep these traditions alive say that the most important thing is to stay together and create good memories with their children.
Peruvians had the chance to settle all disputes by one-on-one fist fights on Christmas Day. The Taca Nacuy Fighting Festival has taken place in Lima, where participants solve their issues on the field. The fights end with a hug. This tradition dates back centuries in the Andean mountains and is aimed at putting an end to disputes. And a group of young people in Peru have developed a bamboo bicycle project. These bikes weigh less than conventional bikes and also help protect the environment.
While working towards his thesis of architecture about the use of bamboo in construction, Victor Barraza made his own bicycle out of bamboo as a hobby. The original model made many eyes turn on the streets, and this encouraged him to open a workshop.
We propose that people build their own frame under our supervision. Then we prepare all the structures and give customers pre-prepared bamboo. And then we teach them how to build it. So we are betting on bicycles, on an alternative transportation system, and also on a different material. There are 3 things in one. This is our way to contribute.
To develop the bamboo bikes, Victor, along with 2 other architects, work with communities of the central jungle, teaching them to ride in the forest without cutting the plant before it has 3 years of growth. According to them, caring for the environment is essential within the project.
This is a material from Peru, from Latin America as a region. It is a material which, in addition to its high resistance, it has great environmental potential. It has a lot of benefits, like soil retention and capturing CO2, even beyond what forests can manage.
They say they have given an added value to the assembly of bicycles with the use of bamboo, since the frame only weighs 2 kilograms while a conventional bike weighs 4.
When you have a conventional bicycle, to make the frame, what is normally done first is melting the metal, which releases 2 kilograms of CO2 to the atmosphere. Here, you're not releasing any CO2. You are capturing the CO2 from the atmosphere.
While it's true that the first patent of bamboo bicycles was registered in 1879 in the United States, they did not get to develop it for everyday use. Now in this workshop in Lima, they expect that the project will be expanded.
The truth is that I go to many startup events. I saw it and I thought it was great. I am an engineer and I found the idea very interesting and I said, why not? Instead of buying one, I can build one myself.
This bicycle is only one example of the added value that can be given to bamboo. In addition to being functional, it contributes to cleaning the environment.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Security forces in Sudan have dispersed dozens of protesters who were marching to the presidential palace. They fired tear gas and shots in the air to disperse groups that gathered at several spots in the capital, Khartoum. This comes after a week of protests against the country's deteriorating economy and the three-decade rule of President Omar al-Bashir. And Tunisian protesters have clashed with police in a demonstration after a journalist set himself ablaze. Police fired tear gas at dozens of people who took to the streets in the western city of Kasserine. 6 members of the security forces were injured and 9 protesters were detained. Protesters say they are angry about harsh living conditions in the country. Judges in France have dropped their investigation into the deadly 1994 attack on former Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, which sparked a genocide in the country. Habyarimana, an ethnic Hutu, was killed by a missile strike on his plane near Kigali's airport in April 1994. The incident triggered 100 days of bloodshed that left an estimated 800,000 people dead, mostly members of the Tutsi minority. Rwanda has long accused France of complicity in the genocide by supporting the Hutu regime. North and South Korean officials held a groundbreaking ceremony to inaugurate a railway and road project. The project will reconnect inter-Korean railways and roads. Officials of the United Nations, China, and Russia also took part in the event. Among the attendees were members of the families who had been separated by the Korean War. South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un agreed to modernize and connect roadways during their first summit in April.
The results of the rail and road project hinge on the spirit and will of our people. We cannot accomplish the reunification at any time if we hesitate and care about others.
We are very much aware that the reconnection of railways and roads means more than just the physical reconnection. People and supplies will come and go through the routes, and interchange cooperation in various fields, including culture, sports, tourism, forest, and health, will be encouraged.
An explosion at a university laboratory in Beijing has killed 3 students. According to the city's fire department, the explosion happened in the environmental engineering department. It was caused by an experiment on wastewater treatment. About 30 fire engines were sent to the scene, and it took them nearly an hour to get the blaze under control. Let us now look at what has been happening across the world.
The government of Zimbabwe has suspended over 500 doctors who have been on strike demanding for better working conditions. Health Minister Obadiah Moyo announced that the government was suspending all striking doctors and that they would not be paid. Meanwhile, the doctors have said they will go to the courts to challenge the decision. Zimbabwe's health sector has deteriorated in recent years amid poor funding and a struggling economy. Japan has announced that it will pull out of the International Whaling Commission and resume commercial whaling in July 2019. The government announced that the decision follows the IWC's rejection of the country's bid to resume commercial whale hunting. In the past, anti-whaling activist groups have clashed with Japanese whaling fleets out at sea in attempts to stop the whaling process.
Countries that focus exclusively on the protection of whales didn't agree to take any tangible steps towards reaching a common position. And at the 67th meeting of the IWC in September, it became obvious that it is not possible to seek the coexistence of states with different views, which led to this decision.
More than 30 migrants have spent their Christmas in the chilly waters of the Mediterranean Sea after several European countries refused to let the rescue boat carrying them dock. According to German humanitarian organization Sea-Watch, the rescue boat carrying the migrants was 150 kilometers off the coast of Libya by Monday night. Sea-Watch said most of the migrants on board are from Nigeria, Libya and Ivory Coast.
And with those stories, we end our news brief. This and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And we are also on social media, so go ahead and follow us. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.